Oh man. All right, guys, how is it going? Hope you are doing well. I am like super stoked for this one because this has been one I've been chomping at the bit to do. Sorry, guys, I've been out of town. I was meeting with some friends, other realtors all over across the country, and got to go down to Miami for a little bit and meet with them and just have a great mastermind with them, talking about just the current environment that we're in our industry and talking about our different areas and cities that we're in and what we're experiencing and challenges and what we're doing with our teams and all this stuff. So it was really great to just get away for a little bit and challenge ourselves and then come back and start implementing some of this stuff. And one of these things that we were kind of discussing and that I was kind of discussing with them is this possibility that maybe we're actually in a buyer's market. Like we always talk about, for years it seems like I've been in real estate for almost a decade, and I can't remember a time, honestly, in my 10 years of being in this industry, at least here in Omaha, where I've been in a buyer's market, quote unquote. It's always been a seller's market, right? Like in seller's market, for those of you that don't know, in a lot of cases is when a market is being referenced to, and the fact that the sellers have all the leverage, which one could argue is true, especially in our current conditions and markets right now all over the country, not just here in Omaha, but all over. But as I started thinking differently about a lot of this stuff, I have started to think that maybe I've got this all wrong, and instead of going with the flow and what everybody else is saying, maybe there's something here when I say that could we possibly be in a buyer's market instead of a seller's market. Now you're going to have to hear me out on this, but I think this is why this is a podcast that is going to grab a lot of people's attention, as it did mine, and as I started processing this and thinking about this. So let's dive into this, because this is something that I'm extremely excited to share with you, because I think there's a lot of things here that don't necessarily get talked about a lot of time as it relates to our market and the industry that we're in. And so let's dive in. So there may be less houses on the market and the inventory may be low, but does that mean we are in worse shape than previous years? That was the first question that I started having to ask myself is, okay, yes, it's a little bit more difficult to get a buyer under contract in these conditions right now, but how does that look, or how does it look when we compare our pendings and our solds and all that kind of stuff in the previous years? So we started looking at statistics, right? So in 2020, now these are within, I want to be clear, within, some of these numbers are within Omaha and our brokerage, okay? So this may not be the case in other places across the country, but this is the case here, and I think it is going to be the case for a lot of other places as well. But in 2020, we did, as an office, a brokerage, Berkshire Hathaway, Ambassador Real Estate, we did 3.7 billion in volume with our brokerage here in Omaha. Now, for some people, they might think, what in the world? That's a crazy number. It is a crazy number. It is a crazy number when you think about the average purchase price here is around $300,000. That means we sell a freaking ton of houses in Omaha, for those of you that are listening outside of Omaha. And for those of you that may be in Omaha, there's a reason why our office is up there every single year when we go to convention. There's a reason why we've won and been the number one office in this category, or pretty dang close in this category, numerous times. Because we sell a crap ton of real estate in Omaha, which is crazy to me. The middle of the Midwest, right? The middle of the United States is sometimes selling the most houses with the most volume, and that just blows my mind. And so that's something to think about. But just so you know, okay, in 2020, 3.7 billion. In 2021, right, this last year when things were just as crazy and low inventory. You hear it all the time. Seller's market, all this stuff. There's no houses on the market. We sold 4.1, just over 4.1 billion in volume. Okay, so looking at rough numbers with houses on the market, we had less houses on the market than we did in previous years, and still we sit at a record low with inventory at levels we have never seen before. And so I think one has to ask the question, how did we and do we continue to sell more houses in Omaha if we're at record lows on houses that are on the market, right? Like if our inventory is so low, how do we continue to sell more than we did the previous last year as our numbers continue to go down of houses that are on the market, right? We hear that a lot, like inventory is so low, there's no houses on the market, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. When you start digging into some of these things, you start realizing a couple things, okay? When I see numbers like that, I gotta say, wait a second, something's not adding up here. Like, if there's not enough houses on the market and there's low inventory, and we're not selling as many, then those numbers would be going down, not up. So something's happening where these houses are getting sold, right? And there's more houses getting sold, but they're not technically hitting the market, maybe. So answer one is kind of like that. It's called broker exclusives, or in some markets, people call them pocket listings. Now, the difference is with a broker exclusive, sellers choose to list with an agent in that specific brokerage where they don't put a sign in the yard. Okay, they don't do the marketing and the advertising that they would normally do on a house and put it on MLS and put it out to the public and all over social media and all that stuff. With a broker exclusive, they don't do that at all. Basically, they just say, hey, we want to just test the market maybe and see if we're going to get what we want to get for our house. Sometimes that's why a seller decides to go broker exclusive, because I know a lot of you are probably thinking like, well, why would a seller do that when the inventory is low and when they could get more for their property? Good question. I think sometimes a seller doesn't really care about driving the price up. They don't care about 1,000 people coming through their house, nor do they want hundreds of people going through their house in the next couple of days. They would much rather just say, hey, here's our price. If you can sell it for that, we'll pay you a commission. You bring the buyer. And if you can find the buyer with somebody else, hence broker exclusive, where we can then go and talk to other agents in our office and we can do a broker exclusive, we can now say, hey, I've got a seller that has a house in such and such neighborhood, this many bedrooms, this many baths, all that kind of stuff. They have a pool, whatever the case is, and this is the asking price. And sometimes you get somebody that reaches out and says, hey, I have a buyer, we want to write up an offer, and they get it done. Now, the next question that I think you would be asking is, well, okay, that's great, but that's not the majority, right? That can't be a lot of people. Well, let me just tell you, it actually works, because I just saw the numbers in our last meeting here at our brokerage, and let me just give you this statistic. So in 2020, our brokerage alone, so this is houses that didn't hit the market, okay? In 2020, we sold roughly around $573 million in volume in broker exclusives. Okay, that's a crap ton of houses. Again, average purchase price, $300,000. Now I will say this, a lot of broker exclusives tend to be in the luxury market. Okay, so when I'm saying luxury, we're talking like probably 750, 800 plus, if not over $1 million, that are going these broker exclusives, right? So in 2021, our broker exclusives, we sold, let me get this number here, $744 million in broker exclusives. So we literally made the jump from 2020 at $573 million in broker exclusives to $744 million in broker exclusives. I don't think I need to say any more. Like, in some cases, there's probably some brokers listening to this going, our brokerage didn't even do that much with the listings that hit the MLS, right? Like, there's some brokerages out there where that number puts them to shame. That's just the amount of houses that we sold within our brokerage here at Berkshire Hathaway that didn't even hit the market. So again, out of that, what was that, 4.1 billion that we did in 2021, 744 million of that was coming from broker exclusives, which is crazy to think about. So does it work? I think the answer is yes. Okay, there's answer number one of how this is happening and how we're selling more houses even with low inventory. Answer number two is houses are selling at a faster rate than ever before with averages of less than, I would say, 24 hours on the market. Like when we look at numbers and compare apples to apples, right? 50 more units have been sold this year at this time compared to last year. So 50 more houses sold than we did last year at this time. How does that happen when we have record lows of inventory? Like, think about that for a second. Like, something's happening here that is allowing buyers to still find properties and get them under contract and do it more than what's happened in the previous years. So what does that mean for a buyer if you're in this market? Okay, I'm going to give you a list of things that you need to prepare for as you're thinking about being a buyer in this market. Number one, like, you have to have this thing down to a T. You better have your ducks in a row. That means you need to be pre-approved. If your house isn't listed and you need to sell to buy, you better have an experienced agent that can walk you through some options on what you can do so that when you write up on a new house, you won't have to worry about all the things that come with getting your home listed and sold and dealing with the stress of all that while being under pressure and having a time frame to do all that in order to keep your new house under contract, right? There are options, especially now in this market as a seller, that you can do to help prepare you for this moment, okay? So if you are using an agent that is not wise or experienced or doesn't have any clue about any other options that you can do other than, like, we need to sell your house first. Like, I hear this all the time from other agents. Like, we need to sell your house first. We need to sell your house first before we go buy the other one. Well, maybe. I think it just kind of depends. Like, it depends on price range, right? Like, how long is it going to take to get that house sold? Right now in this market, man, I can tell you anywhere from 150,000 to 1 million. That house ain't sitting very long in our market. Okay? So there are options there where you're no longer, at least right now, having to think about, like, well, how long is that house going to sit on the market before it goes off the market? It's going to go pretty quickly, especially if you have the right agent who knows how to market your property properly and can do that and has experience doing that and can show a record of doing that, and not only getting your house out there on the market, but actually getting you top dollar for your house and netting you and maximizing the equity that's in your home, okay? So first steps first, get pre-approved, walk through the steps with your agent as far as what you need to do and how you're going to create a plan for these dominoes when they fall into effect. Because here's what happens. Number two, just to follow up here with what I was saying, number one, the reason you need to have all your ducks in a row and a plan laid out is because when the house comes on the market that you are in love with, you better be ready to pounce on it within hours of it being listed. Okay, I can't tell you how many people and how many buyers that we work with on our team still and how many other agents I talk to that are working with buyers that get so frustrated with their clients when they're like, hey, can we go see this house like in a couple days, or can we go see this house tomorrow at this time? Listen, the house isn't going to be there tomorrow. Okay, it's going to go under contract in less than 24 hours. So I used to say this all the time. I used to say buyers are liars, which sometimes they still are. And what I mean by that is a buyer will tell you that this is their price range that they want to purchase in, but yet once you get down to it, they end up purchasing way higher or way lower than what they wanted to be around. Or they say what they're going to put down and they decided to put down this amount, or all these other sorts of things, right? Like, things change. I want to be in this neighborhood and we're set on this neighborhood, and then you go and look in that neighborhood for forever and you can't find them anything, and they can't afford to be in that neighborhood, and then they finally realize that they can go to this other neighborhood that's just as good over here for the price that they're comfortable paying. So a lot of times it's not the sense that like buyers are actually liars. It's just the fact that sometimes they just don't know, and they need to be educated and informed on what they can and can't buy and what they're comfortable buying. But now I would say is true for sellers. Like even if the listing says this is funny. Like I see this all the time right now, and I don't know why agents even put this in the MLS, but seller to go over offers on this date at this time, and then they'll put like the date and time, but then they'll put right after that, but seller reserves the right to accept an offer prior to that deadline. And I sit there scratching my head like, then what's the point of putting that in there? Like if you're gonna present the offers as they come in, then don't say that you're gonna go over offers at a specific date and time that you know darn well it's probably not going to last that long to go out that far anyway. The seller's going to end up taking an offer, especially if it's a really good one, prior to that deadline. And then you get all these other agents that are pissed off because they're like, well, your MLS said that it was you guys were going to go over offers at this time, and then you know you're caught in this weird situation. It's like, just don't even put that in there. Like, don't be a liar and say that you're going to go over these things and then take something before the deadline. Like, just don't even write that in there, especially if you're going to look at offers before you present them at that specific time, which you should be doing anyway. So why is this happening? Like, why is the majority of the time these houses are going under contract before that date? Well, because I think a seller right now in this market, what we're seeing is within 24 hours, if it's priced right, like a seller is sifting through anywhere from 15 to 40 offers within 24 hours. Like, they don't need to wait anymore. They don't need to. Like, there's going to be one offer in there. The seller can only choose one offer, right? So who cares if you have 60 offers, 70 offers, 80 offers? In my opinion, after you get like 20 offers, like, there's going to be a couple in there that are pretty much the same. In some cases that are rare, yes, you're going to get that one crazy cash offer that just outdoes everyone. That will happen. But in most cases, there's going to be 3 or 4 in there that are pretty dang close. And then it just comes down to other things that come with that contract. It might be the agent who they're choosing to represent them. It might be the closing date. It might be the fact that they have better financing or they have more money in the bank. Who knows what it'll be, okay? But number 1, have your ducks in a row. Number 2, understand that you need to pounce on something if you see it right away, and that's why you need to have your ducks in a row. Number 3, you better be ready to write your offer before you see the house, okay? What I mean by that, have a game plan. Know your price and know your ceiling. Okay, this is what I'm explaining to buyers right now. The market is like eBay, all right? That list price is not what the house is worth. The house is worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So, just like eBay, you can go bid on that property and it can continue to be bidded up and bidded up and bidded up and bidded up until the time is over when the seller decides to accept one of those offers. But that's literally what it is. So, the listing price is the starting price. It's not what the house is worth. The house is worth what a buyer's willing to pay for it. Point in case, we just saw this last week. The house was listed for, I think, $262. Okay? I'm going to share with you 2 stories here as it relates to this. Saw a house, $262. Buyers rode up all the way up with an escalation to $335. They were paying $25,000 in the appraisal gap. They were paying $5,000 towards the seller's closing costs, and they waived everything else, and they came in second. Now, I don't know if you heard me, but the house was listed at $262. Again, the agent priced the house well below where it should have been listed. Okay, they did it on purpose to get as many offers as they possibly can. I think it was like 40 offers in 24 hours. Okay, drove as much traffic to the property as they could. Good job, listing agent. And then they had 40 offers to sift through. Okay? At the end of the day, somebody could be like, why in the world would a buyer pay that much money over the asking price? Right? Like, there's no way that house is worth that much. How do you know? How do you know what that house is worth? Like, in all honesty, like when a listing agent goes into listing a property, I'm going to be very real and transparent here, and probably the only agent that will ever admit this. But when a seller asks me, like, what do you think we can get for our house? I don't know the answer to that. I can give you a ballpark figure of what I've seen other houses in the neighborhood go for and what they've sold for and what's active and what's pending in the neighborhood. I don't know what a buyer's willing to pay for your house. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what the house is worth. It's worth what that buyer's willing to pay. So I can give you a ballpark figure, but if you talk to any experienced top producing agent, we have stories where we can tell you where we've gone into a listing appointment and we've listed a house and we walk away and we're like, I cannot believe that house just sold for that. Like, it's happening in my neighborhood right now. Like, you see these sold prices going up with houses around you and you're like, holy crap. How did that house go for that much? Again, a house is worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So you need to know your price and your ceiling. What are you willing to pay to go get that? If you can make up any difference in the appraisal, have that money set aside. Be prepared to waive all contingencies, including the inspection. Talk with your realtor and have them share with you what is happening and what they're seeing in this market on the buy side and the list side, right? Like, as they're representing sellers, what are they seeing? What are the offers that are coming in? As they're representing buyers, and they're writing up in the same price ranges, what are they having to write to get their buyers under contract? What kind of offers are they're being made? How do you put yourself in a position to win, right? Because that's what you're in it for. You're not in it to play the game. You're in it to win. We play to win the game, right? Denny Green used to say that all the time. One of my favorite videos. If you've never watched it, go watch it. It's so funny. I'm a Vikings fan. Shout out Skol Vikings. We just hired a new head coach. And I'm a Vikings fan, and Denny Green was asked a question. I'm getting way off topic, but it's really funny. And he just ranted one time, and he was really upset. And he's like, we play to win the game. Like, he was just mad. Because he's like, we didn't play to lose. We played to win the game. Why do you keep asking me dumb questions? Right? So same thing in this situation. We're playing to win the game. Okay? If your agent doesn't have suggestions for you on how to go win in this game right now, find a new realtor. Go find someone that knows what the heck they're doing. This market isn't made for the small little pussycats right now. It's not. Reality check. Truth bomb. The market isn't made for small little pussycats right now. It's made for lions. And if you don't have a lion representing you, you're going to be looking at a lot of houses for a long time and probably writing offer after offer and getting rejected. You have to have an agent that is in the market daily and that has a pulse on the market. I cannot preach this enough. Be aggressive and be persistent and patient and don't give up. You can still have a line as an agent and make sure that just because they're not getting one or two, they will eventually get you under contract. But it might take a couple things for you to learn as you go along the way. But make sure you have an agent that's getting feedback after every offer that you write up to figure out, how do we make this offer stronger? What did we lose out to? Okay, number 4, have extra money on hand. I don't care if you have to ask grandma and grandpa to share some money with you. Okay, if you don't have extra money in your account, you may struggle in this market. Why? Because people are waiving appraisal contingencies and sellers are asking buyers to make up the difference if the appraisal comes back below the agreed upon purchase price. So some buyers are even paying sellers money for their closing costs as well. So in both these cases, this money needs to be given at closing. It's not something you can wrap into the loan. It's something you bring to the table at closing. So if you've got to make up a difference in the appraisal, that money's got to be there in a bank account ready to be given on closing day. Same thing if you're paying sellers closing costs. You can't wrap that into the loan, okay? Some ideas on how to get some extra money. Some of these are kind of funny. Some of them are for real. Sell something. Maybe you have some stuff laying around that you could go sell and get some extra money. Sell something. Get a side hustle. I mean, I don't know about you, but everywhere I go, there's people hiring all over the place. Get a side hustle, make some extra money, start building that savings account up a little bit so that you'll have some extra money. Ask relatives. I've already talked about that one. Don't put down as much for the down payment. So if you were thinking of putting 20% down, maybe do like 5% or 10% down. And now you have some of that extra money to use as extra money. You could donate a lot of blood and plasma. I mean, that probably won't get you very far, but you could definitely do that. How about selling NFT or some crypto? Right, some of you are into that stuff. What about cashing out some stocks? Whatever you choose to do, seek some financial counsel and see what your options are, okay? I'm not a financial advisor. I can't help you with that kind of stuff. I can give you some ideas, but then I would recommend going and talking with a financial advisor or someone that you trust about money to kind of help you start laying out that plan. A smart listing agent in this market is going to ask for proof of funds for your down payment and any differences you have to make up. So be ready to provide that proof. Okay, that's another thing that if they ask that, hey, you guys are saying you're going to make up $10,000 on the appraisal gap, and you're putting 10% down, we want proof that that money's in your account. Okay, if you're being gifted that money, have that money gifted prior to you writing an offer. So you have that money in an account that you can screenshot and send over and prove that you have that money, or you can show them that you have that money with your 401k or stocks or wherever you're putting it. Okay. So with all that being said, you guys are probably sitting here, if you're wise and you're smart, and you're like, wasn't this podcast supposed to be talking about a buyer's market? Yes. So how can this possibly be a buyer's market after everything I've just covered? Well, let's think about this. If you have observed or know anything about our economy and also the amounts and gobs of money that is available right now, you would be thinking, at what point does this all shift? Right? There is so much money out there, you guys. People are chomping at the bit with a lot of this money. People are moving from the coast and they're selling their houses way out on the coast for gobs of money, and then they're coming to the Midwest and coming closer into different places around the country, and they have cash to play with. A lot more cash than they have ever before. You heard me talk about it a little bit earlier, NFTs and crypto. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that know someone that is a multimillionaire because they invested in crypto. More millionaires than we've ever seen before because of opportunities that are out there. Okay? So at what point does this shift? I think a huge answer is when rates start climbing, and we are starting to see it now. Okay? Interest rates are starting to climb. We're all starting to see that. This means at some point the inventory and market will shift a bit. I'm not saying a lot, but I'm saying a bit. When and if rates get to higher than 5%, which I think they will, there will be a slight shift with the buyer's pool in your market. I can guarantee you that, because it's going to price some people out from being able to afford to buy what they want to buy. So this is something we're watching very closely. I know this doesn't affect the buyer, or does it? Which is the whole point of this podcast title. We are in an interesting time right now. As a buyer, you may be overpaying for a property. I said that with quotations and overpaying, but if you look at the past 5 years, appreciation has increased like we've never seen it before in real estate. Which means if you overpay for your house, you will make that money back, typically what we're seeing in 2 to 5 years. If you don't believe me, go ask any of my sellers that I've listed their house with the last 6 months and what kind of equity they got back on that house when they sold it. In most cases, my clients are seeing anywhere from 25 to 75 plus K in equity that they're netting after the commissions are paid out. And in some cases, way more. I've said this for years that there's no greater thing to invest in than real estate. Except now maybe crypto and NFTs. I just mentioned that, but I don't know enough on that to be dangerous yet. I know a little bit. I'm not ready to jump all in on that stuff yet, but I'm telling you, a lot of people have, and a lot of people are making a ton of money. It's the same thing with real estate. Over the years, we've seen kind of this shift of people buying up investment properties and having a whole bunch of rentals and all this stuff. But now there's been things to shift in this game. Like, look at Airbnbs, for example. People buy a condo, they rent it out, and in 6 to 10 years or less, the thing's paid off, and they are netting anywhere from 50 to 200K each year in some cases. Not all cases, but in some. You guys, think about this. You buy a vacation home. You now have a free place to stay twice or 3 times a year, however many times you want to go stay there. You rent it out for the rest of the year, and someone else pays your mortgage through that, and you make a profit on top of it. If it doesn't work out, you don't want to manage it anymore, or you're just tired of, maybe you don't visit there as often as you thought, and maybe it's not Airbnb as good as you thought it would. You sell it. You're going to sell it for more than what you bought it for in most cases. I would say in like 90% of the cases you will. Like, things are drastically changing in this industry. And I don't know about you, but like there are numerous times where I'm starting to look at things a little bit differently. Like, as we're thinking about this being a buyer's market, there's still probably some people out there that are like, this guy's crazy. It's not a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. Okay, let me ask you this. You buy low and you sell high, right? Correct? Like, isn't that what investors do? Isn't that what they say? Like, you buy low and you sell high. Isn't that what's happening right now in real estate? Think about it. Like, yes, offers are crazy. Yes, as a buyer, you're going to sacrifice and give up some things. But you know what that screams to me? The risk equals reward. Things are very chaotic right now. There are offers I'm seeing that are blowing my mind, but people are willing to pay and give up things in order to get the asset. People are going to the extremes. But this should tell you something. People see value in an asset even in crazy times, and this asset is a stinking house. People have figured it out that real estate is a true asset. People want to own a house because they see the value in it. And if you're anyone that's experienced this, if you bought a house even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even more years ago now, if you go and sell that house today, you are netting a ton of money, right? You're selling when things are high, right? But this is why I believe we're in a buyer's market. Because if you can manage to get into a house and you sit on it for a couple years, the amount of equity that will build in that house will blow your mind. Listen, I've said this before. I was so blessed to be representing a builder at the time when Vanessa and I decided to build. This was in 2017. It was completed in March of 2018. This happened right before all of this new construction stuff and the pandemic and all that stuff, right? 2018, so 2 years prior to the pandemic, stuff went out of control, right? But at the time, we scraped all the money we had and put it down for our lot and our down payment and our closing costs. We emptied pretty much everything we had in savings and then some. But something in my wife's gut, like, I'll never forget this. Like, she said it from day one. And eventually mine began to change too as I watched all of these thousands of dollars leave our accounts. Side note, somebody once said, I think it was Grant Cardone, that said, cash is trash. Like, if cash is just sitting in your account right now, like, it's doing nothing for you, which is true in this instance. So, like, as we drained everything out, I remember Vanessa saying, like, I'm so glad that we're building right now. And she's like, we actually wanted to wait and save some more money before pulling the trigger, but we decided to do it in 2018. So we took a risk, right? Like, in our minds, we took a risk because we thought that we could save up some more money to put down on the house, when in reality, looking back, we would have never been able to save the amount of money that we needed to in order to build that house. And here's the end of the story. I remember walking out of our house as we closed from the final walkthrough, and we were sitting there talking with one of the builders, and he said, Ryan, if you decided to build this exact same house on this exact same lot today, by the time it was completed, you'd be paying $30,000 more. And that was because of the cost of the lots that had gone up. That was because of the cost of materials and labor and those things. And this was 2018. Okay, fast forward now, and there are houses being built in our neighborhood for almost twice as much as what we paid for our house. I was laying in bed with Vanessa the other night talking about the equity we now have in our house. And you know what she said to me? This is why I love this woman. Like, spoken like a true investor and someone who gets and sees the opportunities in the future. She goes, our house could be worth $1 million in the next 5 years. At that point, we could buy a different house with a line of credit, Airbnb this house out or rent it out, and just hold on to it and allow the equity to continue to build in it. It's in a prime location, and everyone wants to be in this area because of the school district and because we're so close to Dodge, which is an expressway that everybody gets on to drive downtown and get from east to west in Omaha. Spoken like a true genius, she read my mind. That's why I love her so much. I love that my wife and I are risk takers. I love that when we see something we want, we no longer wait, but we find a way to make it happen. We do this because we have learned that when opportunities come, you have to take them. This is an opportunity in our market as a buyer and as a seller. Okay? You buy low, you sell high. Right? You're gonna pay a little bit more. I get that from the buying side of things. But eventually, you'll make that up in a couple years down the road. The market, listen to me, the market is tough. But you know what this market is gonna do? This market is gonna weed out a lot of part-time and average agents because they don't have a pulse on the market and they can't get to showings with clients because they're wrapped up in another job or something else. If you are that agent, do yourself a favor and quit doing real estate as a side hustle. You're not doing your clients any favors by not being available when they need you the most. Did you hear me on that? In this market, you gotta go when something comes up. And if you're not available as an agent, then get the heck out of the business. Because you're not doing your clients any favors. If you don't want to quit, then become a lion and go all in. The lion agents are the ones that will come through this and will benefit with their clients in the long run. I can promise you that. I've been preaching that to my team. I said, listen, if you survive this year and you put in the work and you put in the effort and you're there for your clients when they need you, you are going to survive and you will actually blow your business up in the next 2 to 3 years. Because your clients are going to see how dedicated you were to them, and they're going to see how hard you're willing to work to get them into a house or to sell their house. I'm telling you right now, like a for sale by owner in this market, you have got to be losing your mind if you try to sell your house for sale by owner in this market. Why? Anyone can sell your house. Your house will sell. Statistically, though, we've seen it for years that for sale by owners do not net as much money as they possibly could compared to when they use an agent who nets them more money. It's statistically proven. It's a fact. So yeah, anyone can sell your house. But what are you going to do in a type of market that's like this when you've got 20, 30, 40 offers coming your way? And how do you make that decision? And how do you decipher what this contract is saying over here and what this one isn't? And when you run into situations where people don't have the funds anymore and they want to back out of the contract and all that, like there is so much stuff that comes with this type of market. I was in a mastermind this morning with top producing agents. These are 15 of the top producing agents in our brokerage. And one of the agents in there, she's been in the business for years. She said, I have never had to work so hard in my life. On the list side and on the buy side. And we were all shaking our heads and we're like, yeah. Like, this is where the lions now come out and they take over. Because the lions are the ones who are willing to put in the work. And the little pussycats running around thinking that, oh, this is a fun fun job to be in, and it's a cool industry, and I'm gonna make a ton of money. Like, those people aren't gonna last, because they're gonna soon realize, if they haven't already, that there's a lot of time, work, and effort that goes into this. There's a lot of things that need to take place in order to be a successful agent. The real estate market is hot, yes, but it's not for everyone. You need thick skin, you need grit, you need hard work, motivation, dedication, discipline, consistency. You need networking skills, relationship skills. Like, there's a lot of things that you need to be a top producing agent. So again, I'm telling you right now, if you are not using an agent that knows what the heck they're doing, or isn't in it full time, and isn't selling more than, 15 houses a year, you need to find somebody that is, because they're not going to have a freaking clue what they're doing. Okay? My last piece of advice for you. If you are a buyer, okay? If you're a buyer in this market, saddle up, partner. Saddle up, get ready for a fun ride. It may get bumpy, it may get tiring, but I promise you, if you hang in there, and when you get your house, it will be the best decision you ever made, and you'll reap the rewards of investing in an asset that only few ended up getting during these times. And in 5 to 10 years, when you decide to sell and you net thousands of dollars because you hung in there and took a risk, it will all be worth it. If you're a buyer, do not be scared of this market. Do not be scared of it. Embrace it and what it can do for you in the years to come. That's what you need to do if you're a buyer in this market. Saddle up and hang on. Be patient. Be persistent. Get yourself a lion agent and get out there and do some work. And eventually, all of that work will pay off. All of the disappointment will turn into joy and excitement, because the houses you didn't get weren't the ones that were intended for you anyway. The one is out there, and it will come if you have the right agent and if you have the right mindset. Understand that this is a buyer's market. Regardless of what you have to pay for the house to get it, you will not regret buying this asset in the future. I can promise you that. Thanks, guys, so much. I hope you have a good night. And if you guys, again, have any questions or comments and want to know more, feel free to reach out to me. You know where to find me. If you've got a topic you want me to discuss further on, let me know as well. I'm happy to do that. Love you guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.